You say he was popular among the players. Do you think it actually gave it was intended to shake the whole team up? This is what happens if you cross the line. It was almost setting an example to everybody. This is how it's going to be from now on.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's done that tactically. If one or two players didn't fit in with the way that he wanted to play,
because it's a risk, isn't it, to a certain extent, to do that with somebody who's considered a star player.
It is a risk, and I remember some of the headlines. The other headlines at the time were, why are you sort of alienating this player who could bring you trophies and goals and everything? But look, I mean, clearly they still need a centre-forward, a finisher now. But I could understand if Aubameyang was not setting the right example to the younger players coming through. And I know that, I mean, just talking to people at Arsenal, they were a little bit concerned what sort of role model element was he to the younger players coming through at that time, whether it was Smith Rowe or Saka, both intelligent, professional individuals who probably wouldn't be swayed by that, but they just thought, Aubameyang, no, not worth it.
What did you actually think of him as a player?
I mean, probably not quite consistent enough, but on his day, he was terrific.
That's the thing.
From an Arsenal perspective, you wouldn't put him anywhere near an Ian Wright. You wouldn't put him anywhere near, I don't know, sort of going back in time, almost like a sort of Frank Stapleton. I mean, Arsenal have had some sort of great strikers down the years. You wouldn't put him up there. I think partly because of his attitude at times, but it was just that consistency of goal scoring.
You mentioned it was in COVID time. Of course, it wasn't big COVID time, which was the year before, but it was on making a bit of a comeback at this time in December 2021.
COVID making a comeback. You make them sound like a sort of 60s band.
I know, and people are getting worried, though, that games are going to be shut down again. And we've got a story in the Telegraph of players told, test negative for COVID in your car or go home. Moyes saying there could be, fixture list hell.
Well, he's just saying the players were more vulnerable
exactly.
at over the Christmas period. I think West Ham at that time had sort of like 8 or 9 games over the quotes festive period, and there would be issues. I mean, next to that Telegraph piece, I think there's a piece on QPR's second consecutive game was off because of COVID. I wonder whether there would be the same appetite now for cancelling games like that.
It's interesting. Sort of the second time around, if you like, this point in time, it was a halfway house. There was some events which were insisting you were masked up. There was grey areas about what you could and couldn't do, wasn't there?
Yeah, and then you had the Euro final from 2020, which was obviously postponed to 2021, was 2/3 full, and they were sort of ramping up those games. I mean, it was an extraordinary period, and fair play to the players. Obviously had that issue with COVID itself. Also the issues of some of them had family members who were shielding. I think Troy Deeney had a young child, and so he was obviously concerned about it. I thought it actually showed the best of the players in that period, the leadership of people like Deeney and Jordan Henderson and Mark Noble. But also their ability. I mean, I went to 100-odd games behind closed doors, and to actually see the players just delivering and hear them. Well, I made a list of those who expanded my vocabulary. Jordan Henderson, thank you. Connor Cody, thank you. Kasper Schmeichel, thank you. In terms of my vocabulary being expanded, but in terms of completely empty stadiums, and it was soulless without the fans. But they kept going, the players.
There was an interesting game this day 3 years ago, which you were at. It's Man City 7, Leeds 0. Headline in the Times is De Bruyne weaves his magic in City masterclass. Grealish was playing, Kyle Walker was playing,
Rodri
was playing. I mean, half the team is still there now, and you see Man City 7, Leeds, and you think, yeah, fair enough, that's about Man City. Isn't it? I mean, incredible to see the contrast now. Yeah,
I remember thinking at the time, well, actually, 7 Leeds got off lightly because City were just fabulous. I mean, it could have been 8, 9, 10. City were that good. Yeah, the contrast now, I mean, it's not completely down to Rodri, but Rodri is just so important.
You did throw Diaz into the mix the other week, and Diaz has been back, and it hasn't made a whole heck of a difference.
Well, he has. I mean, he's stepped up he's stepping up his fitness and sharpness as he returns. But you can just see he's an organiser of defence. But you've got Kyle Walker possibly again playing at centre half today if there are doubts over Aki and Akanji. So but Rodri is so important. But that was a masterclass of performance by City.
Do you think Pep now is paying a bit of a price for not moving older players on maybe a bit earlier? Because you look at this team, which is half of them, as I say, are still there, and you would say, well, maybe they're a bit over the hill. And Grealish, for me, hasn't really kicked on particularly with Man City.
And he plays him in the number 10 position and he has a good game.
I think drops him.
Yeah, which you don't quite understand. Your point is completely right in terms of the ageing nature of the team, and then he brings Gundogan back and, don't look back in anger. But Gundogan is a fantastic player, but I don't think he's exactly what they need. But in central midfield, Bernardo Silva as well. What a fantastic player he's been in a range of positions. He's been magnificent for City. Kyle Walker, I know he's carrying a knee injury, and typically Kyle, stoic, just wants to play on and deliver. But, he's not at his best. They are slowing up. John Stones, fantastic footballer, amazing servants, won so much. But he's been struggling with injury.
You're a big admirer. We're all big admirers of De Bruyne, and every time sort of he comes back, you see flashes of what he's still about. You almost want him to get back to that level. But do you think we're at a point where we've got to stop believing that can happen?
I think you have to keep believing. From Pep's and Manchester City's perspective, you absolutely have to surround De Bruyne with belief. Because there's only one thing his appetite's there, the ability is there. It's just his body occasionally breaks down. And it's sad to see because he's just been such a wonderful, wonderful player. And City are a different team without him. But I'm afraid it does still come back to Rodri being missing. And I think it was a piece by, was it Phil Thomas in your paper today, the possibility of Rodri coming back before the end of the season. And obviously that would be fantastic for Manchester City. But there is always a risk. And you often think, is it worth someone coming back for the last month of the season when actually they can be given a bit of time over the summer?
I was wondering about that, saying he's ahead of schedule.
Well, he's ahead of schedule, but then do they really want him to be schlepping around the United States for 3-4 weeks for the Club World Cup? Maybe he would actually need the summer off to rebuild properly.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.